Greg Nutt, and welcome to the American Landscape. I'm in Yuma, Arizona at the Yuma Territorial Prison. I'm here to see Tina Clark. She's both an archaeologist and a historian, so I'm looking for her unique insights on this historic prison.
Hi, Greg. I'm Tina.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the Yuma Territorial Prison.
Well, thank you for having us. I'm really looking forward to this. So what do you got in store for us today?
Well, I want to share some incredible Arizona history. And this is probably one of the most precious museums. We housed here in its day from 1876 to 1909, 3,033 prisoners, 29 women. It became very overcrowded.
Oh.
It literally closed in 1909. The prisoners went to help build the prison that is the state prison today called at Florence.
Okay, so it kind of outgrew what it could be here, so it had to be moved in.
Yes, and this we're sitting on the granite outcropping overlooking the Colorado River, and it really had no expansion room at all. So they moved to Florence, Arizona.
Wow. Now this is a pretty nice, impressive room we've walked into. Was this original? Was this part of the prison?
Well, actually, it's on the site, but the prison became totally destroyed. So we have the cell block that was existing and is still authentic. But this is the site of the original mess hall.
Oh, okay.
And then during the Depression, there was a way to build this adobe replica on the same site.
Okay. Nice. So I see some notables on the wall. So you had some favorites?
Yes, I do. This is R.L. McDonald. And this guy was the school superintendent, and he was accused and actually found guilty of forgery. So he was dipping into the education budget. When he arrived here, the warden said, "Look, you're really a white-collar worker here. We need someone to keep track of the prisoners' accounts." The prisoners, in their free time, made unusual items, and once a month, the prison on a Sunday, the townspeople could come up and do shopping and buy prison goods, handmade, some really beautiful things that we could point out. The museum is full of these items. But he finally was going to be released from prison, and off he went, and he actually took with him $130 of that prisoner account of all of their hard work. So he did not really seem to be reformed at all.
Doesn't sound like it.
And plus he's a character. I mean, if you look at his face, he looks like a bookkeeper or a banker.
Now there was one other one I think you wanted to show me, the first gun, fast gun?
The fastest gun. And this was Buckskin Frank Leslie. So Buckskin was named that moniker. He got it because he wore a buckskin vest with fringe. Just like some of you could buy these today in a Western store. Sure. But he lived in that vest, and he was tall, he was handsome, and Wyatt Earp said about him, he could be the fastest draw and give Doc Holliday, who really had the reputation, he could give Doc Holliday a run for his money. He actually was a bartender in the Oriental, owned by the Earps.
Yeah.
Yes, he worked for the Earps. He had murdered he killed his wife. And so I have read that he was at that Oriental saloon. He had a room upstairs, and he had a girlfriend that he drank. He was a heavy drinker. So was she. He put her up against the wall and outlined her frame with bullets. So, I mean, what a boyfriend to have,
Wow,
right?
yeah, it's, that would be scary. Wow.
So he really was, but handsome. And here's the last little funny part of the story. He was paroled here. He worked and helped in the prison hospital. And so he was a really well-behaved prisoner. And when he was released, his picture was, a drawing of his profile was in the San Francisco newspaper. And a very wealthy woman fell in love with him just from that image, proposed to him. She came to pick him up on the day he was released. She had a big hat on with netting tied so you really couldn't see her face. And off they went in her buggy. But he died in a pool hall as an old man.
Now, when we were walking over here, I noticed some dainty little items, but a really steely-eyed gentleman next to him.
Yes.
What's the juxtaposed thing going on here? Because he doesn't seem to go with that stuff.
That is exactly right. So here it is. The prisoners, in their free time, usually on Sundays, or when they could get a couple of hours to themselves, they made their crafts. C.E. Hobart, who was a hardened murderer, scary, he was a lifer, no hope of parole. His Czechoslovakian grandmother, when he was a boy, taught him how to knit lace. By the way, these are examples. This part in the middle, that is a piano scarf that is 12 feet long. And if you look up closely, the needles are knitting needles, very fine. He's known to have made a 12-foot long tablecloth.
Wow.
Now, the prisoners once a month on Sundays could sell their crafts. So they all had little individual bank accounts. And we've had 2 lace magazines come and do a story on him alone.
What?
Because it's a totally dying art. Today, we don't know if there are many people that actually know how to knit lace.
I noticed a lady back here, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought I read a story about her killing her husband and taking his heart out or something, hitting him in the face with it. Is that, or do I got one mixed up?
No, you've got that correct.
That's pretty
Elena Estrada,
scary.
and it wasn't actually her husband, it was her boyfriend, and
that made it a whole lot better.
she caught him in the act of cheating big time. So she literally killed him with a knife, cut his heart out, and threw it in his face. So
remember, guys, don't cheat on your girlfriend.
And don't mess with Elena Estrada.
Wow.
So the prisons in the West were really non-existent. And women were really sort of, it was hard to have a place to house them. So they got away with a lot until this prison realized that there were some hardened criminals, like Elena, for example. But I should introduce you to the infamous prisoner of all the prisoners that we have here, 3,033 prisoners. Let's introduce you to the infamous Pearl Hart.
Oh, another woman.
Yes, she's it. She and her boyfriend robbed the last stagecoach to ever be held up in Arizona. She's the only woman to have ever robbed a stagecoach.
Wow, that's kind of infamy, right?
And the part of the story is that she became a household word in the entire United States.
Really?
Cosmopolitan magazine did a 2-part serialized story about her, so you read half the story, and you had to wait a whole nother month to buy the sequel, the second half. And because Yuma was on the main train line of the Southern Pacific, southern route of the reporters in New York could get on a train and show up here in Yuma to interview her. They came by probably 20 different reporters. So she was a celebrity prisoner.
So she was Bonnie and Clyde before Bonnie and Clyde?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. Is this Pearl Hart's actual gun, or is this a replica?
It is her actual gun, not that she used in her crime, but her stage gun. This girl, she was 28, but she looks like a girl, and she took her crime on the vaudeville stage and was a sensation in terms of who she was, but she was a really bad actress. So she had her, 2 months of fame, ended up marrying a cowboy and fading into history.
Oh, well, it's still a really cool story and a nice piece of history you have there. So as we came out to the prison block, I've been in architecture for 20 years. I noticed what I know is probably the footprint of some other buildings where some walls were. So what was out here besides the cell block?
Right. Well, the prisoners really did work. They had shops here. They made all the prison uniforms on site.
Wow.
They made all the shoes. They made rope. They made brooms. So it's called prison industry.
Well, it's very self-sufficient.
Yes, so there were a bunch of little shops. And basically this site was scraped pretty clean except for what you see behind me, the cell block. These were built with local on-site materials. We're standing on a granite outcropping, and they just mined this granite, and the prisoners built their own cells.
Wow. Now, if I understand my history right, two prisoners built the first 2 blocks, or a few?
No, 10 of the original prisoners
Built 2 cells.
2 cells.
And is that these right here?
Yes. So the prison has been added on to, it took off. The total confinement here was 3,033 prisoners, but over 30 years.
Now, how many guys would be in that one cell?
6.
6. Wow.
So they were usually working all day, and they had 3 really good meals in a mess hall that really is today the museum. However, that was destroyed and it was rebuilt. And the prisoners would be locked up right after dinner, and at 6 a.m. they'd be going strong back to the work parties.
Wow.
So they helped the community build levees. They had prison industries. They cooked in the mess hall. So these prisoners were kept really busy.
Now, would it have been open air like this, or was there something above?
Actually, it was enclosed. This is a famous shot of the cell block, and that would be the prison hospital on top. So the prisoners had fantastic medical care. They had a dentist here.
Wow.
So it was really a modern institution for its day.
So 6 guys are stuffed into here, right?
Yes.
And did they have a ladder to get to that top bunk, or did they just climb up there?
They did not.
Wow.
But notice there's a ring in the floor, and there's one bucket. That's the latrine bucket. They actually were locked in after their supper, and they probably had 12 hours in the cell, and no talking allowed.
And I saw what looked like books or something back there.
Yes, the first library reportedly, we don't have it in stone, but one of the warden's wives started the first library in Arizona. And if you came to this prison and you could not read, by the time you left, you could read. If you wanted to learn another language, Spanish or a tribal language, there was time that you could actually learn quite a bit.
So you couldn't talk in here, but you could read.
Yes.
So did they have candles? Not a lot of natural light flowing in
Right.
here.
They did have electric lights.
Really?
Yes.
Is this got a cell block name? Is this like cell block A? Or,
No, this is it. This is
it.
the main cell block.
I just heard a voice. I take it there's like interactive stuff when you look in, things talk to you. That's really cool.
So I think we're in view of the dark cell.
What is that solitary confinement?
Yes, it's the solitary confinement cell, and it is reportedly haunted.
See, I wanted to ask you, I know Zach Bagans and the Ghost Adventure's been out here. So there is a haunted connection here. We're not a paranormal show, but we do have our own Ghost Adventures. Now it looks like it's just in the side of rock. Is that built or is that natural?
No, it's a natural granite outcropping.
Wow.
And the prisoners themselves dug out this cell. And it is, well, at one point there were 10 prisoners who, it was called the Gates Riot. 10 prisoners banded together and tried to escape. They injured the warden, so they all went in there.
Can we actually go in the dark cell?
If you dare.
If I dare.
But yes, let's go.
Okay, let's do that.
So it's reported to be haunted. A lot of people get a creepy feeling when they come in here.
You know, you mentioned snake pit, and I think we are in the desert. Would there have been a snake problem out here? Or?
Well, yes, but the reason they called it the snake pit or the scorpion den or all kinds of different names, but there is a small air hole up here because the prisoner would be in here stripped to his underwear and in total darkness. There is an air hole, so if the sun just aligned with that hole, there'd be a shaft of light. And according to legend, that a mean guard would maybe not like the prisoner in here and would drop a scorpion down or a snake.
Oh, man.
And here they would be locked in a cage.
Yeah, see the floor that still has it, huh?
You're right. The cage was about 4.5 feet, so you couldn't really stand up in there.
Oh.
And you were put in the cage. You got bread and water once a day.
Wow. Now, it looks like fires have been in here. It looks like it's patinaed by smoke. Is that happened after?
Oh, it certainly did, because during the Great Depression, people, particularly from Oklahoma, that whole Dust Bowl era, they were going west. They wanted to go to California, the promised land. But there were machine gun emplacements sitting on that bridge on the California side. And they would, unless they could prove they had money, a letter of reference, and a bank account, then they were turned back to Yuma. And many of them, during the Depression, moved into the cells.
Wow.
And to keep warm, this particular, in the winter, it's cold in here. So they would, of course, build fires to keep warm.
And then, again, not a lot of ventilation, so that would have been pretty interesting.
Right, so that one smoke hole. The women were kept totally separate. They had their own exercise yard. There is one very handsome guy that went to solitary confinement for 2 weeks for trying to break into the women's cell block.
Wow.
But the whole idea was they were kept separate. They never went to eat with the other in the mess hall. And they were really, and most women that were here with no company at all. It'd be one woman. So she was almost in solitary.
Total isolation from men by themselves. So you're saying there was never very many women at one time then?
Only once there were 3 together, because Pearlhart was here for 5 years. And then Elena Estrada came in. She's the one that cut the heart out of her sweetheart.
Wow, what a sweetheart.
Her former sweetheart, and one other gal, and they Elena Estrada and the Mexican woman had a great big fight, fisticuffs, and they were put in solitary, but they lived 3 to this one big cell.
Oh, okay. I guess not too. I mean, compared to what the guys are living in,
Yes.
they've got it pretty
So they
nice.
had it pretty
nice.
but they did not go out to the work parties.
Oh.
And they really didn't give them jobs
So they just
much.
sat around all
yes.
day. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. How boring. Wow, and this is a pretty expansive place. I take it it's one of the yards.
Yes, so the prison yard, this is an exercise yard. You can see the walls are intact here. We've got 18-foot high walls. This would have been the original feeling when you became a prisoner. You really couldn't look out and see a view. You were contained.
And this would have been typical through the whole prison. So once you were in
Yes.
here, you saw walls, no tree, nothing really,
Right,
just
you were right.
walls. Now, how many guys do you think could have been out in this yard at any one time?
Well, a couple of hundred,
Wow.
because its max would have been about 300 on site, and it was starting to get overcrowded.
And
They
I
had
take
to-
it maybe some fisticuffs now and then out here.
Yes.
That many people crammed into a space like this, I would imagine.
Yes. And of course, you've got 6 men to a cell at night, and if you didn't like your roommate, your cellmate, it would be a problem.
Now, this looks like a great place to have a hanging or something. Was there any executions here?
No executions here. They only one hanging, and that was for a prisoner that killed his cellmate. And he was hung at the Yuma County Courthouse.
Okay. Like in the town square? Or?
Yes.
Ooh, probably.
And Sheriff Livingston had engraved invitations, and everyone in the community was invited to a public hanging. Mary Elizabeth Post was the school teacher, and she was from Boston. She'd never heard of anything so awful and primitive, so she closed the school for the day, and the schoolyard was right across from the gallows.
Oh, wow.
And all the parents ended up coming and bringing their children,
anyways.
and she packed her bags and left.
Wow.
Eventually they begged her to come back. But I'm just saying, it was sort of the Old West, and it didn't seem, too strange to have a hanging.
To them that was local. Everybody showed up. Okay,
yeah, that was a kind of, everybody had pie and coffee afterwards.
But she was a little more genteel.
Yes.
So again, this is more cells. This would have been a newer end of the prison compared to what we saw over there.
Yes, it was very overcrowded, and so they converted the library into 12 more cells.
For those who want to come visit, what's the hours of the prison, days, times, and all that stuff?
Okay, during the winter, particularly, they're open here 7 days a week from 9 to 5.
9 to 5, okay.
During the summer, we close probably like a Monday and Tuesday or something like that. So you really should call and check.
Get that. Is there a nominal fee or is it a donation? What's?
No, there is a fee, and it's like around $8 per person.
Well, that's
and that
reasonable.
money is returned to keep this place going.
And what's this? Should we see this on the way out?
Oh my gosh, this is the icon of Yuma, and this is the famous main guard tower. But look at the territorial roof.
That's awesome.
As part of your history of Yuma, that is called the territorial roof. The buildings around Yuma, the oldest ones, have that roof. But we have taken the theme on all of our bus stops. They all have a territorial roof.
Oh, I'll have to look for that.
Yes.
That's awesome. Thanks for having us here. You've been such a gracious host. I really appreciate your time.
Yes, well, it has been such a pleasure. You and your cameraman are fun to be around, and you are enthused about your subjects, and it seems to me like you're a great adventurer at heart.
Yes, thank you.
How nice.
I appreciate that. Again,
Yes.
thanks very much. People,
You're welcome.
please come to Yuma when you're in Yuma. Come to the Territorial Prison. It's It's a great and wonderful place and a nice piece of history here in Arizona.